So let's bring him in now. Here he is. Good morning, Godfrey Bloom. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. A little bit hot here at the moment.
It is a bit hot, aren't you? For those who don't know, and why ever not, Godfrey is a former MEP, a former banker. He's a military speaker. He's a military lecturer. He's a political commentator. He's many things, and he's very popular around here. And God, as you've been watching developments on the world stage regarding Israel, Palestine, and Iran, and you have much to say, not only about the origin of the conflict, but where we are at this moment in time. And you can feel free to start off wherever you feel most comfortable, because you're that kind of guest that I trust you to direct your own course. Where would you like to start on this?
Well, I thought I'd like to start a little bit anecdotally, if I may. I'd like to take the United States of Wyoming, which, as you know, is a very rural state. It's a sort of cowboy state, and I know it reasonably well. And there was a I wasn't at the rally, but I heard it from a very reliable source, that going back about 2 or 3 years now, there was a Republican rally, and somebody stood up from the floor and asked what I thought was an extremely reasonable question, which was, why does the United States have to follow absolutely every piece of foreign policy which is laid out by Israel? Which I thought was a very reasonable question. He was quickly frog marched out of the room for being anti-Semitic. So he had to leave. I made some observations about a Jewish bank about 4 years ago, and its politicization, and it was very, very mild. It was very mild. I got hate emails from all over the world, thousands. It was quoted out of context completely by a magazine, The New Statesman, so on and so forth. People will not understand just how impossible it is to criticize Zionism. It is impossible because, first of all, they run legacy media.
Yep.
They run banks, all the massive banks. They run BlackRock, which is the biggest investment company in the world. So they run everything. And you cannot say anything without the world and his wife coming down on you for being anti-Semitic. Now, let me just explain a little about being anti-Semitic. Zionism is not the same as Judaism. So Zionists, broadly speaking, are relatively secular. They believe in Israel as a state, as an Israeli state. It's not. These people are not very nice people, as it's been proved by the genocide in Gaza. They are evil people. They are not even endemic to that part of the world, the Middle East, or what was historically potentially Israel, or Israelite, if you will. They've all changed their name. Netanyahu, whose name is not Netanyahu at all. No prime ministers of Israel have kept their name. They've tried to Middle Easternize it, if that isn't a funny word. I've just got, excuse me, going down here. Netanyahu was a Pole. He's Polish. His real name is Milosevsky. And you could go back to all the Israeli prime ministers since the 1948. They've all changed their name to make it sound they're inventing their own history. They're inventing it in much the same way that one might argue that Sir Walter Scott invented a lot of Scottish history in a very romantic and rather nice way, but a lot of it's conjecture, so on and so forth. And if you go back 5,000 years, which the Zionists like to do, you'll find that genetically they are Canaanites, if you go right back to that.
Right.
You've got all sorts of different kinds of Jews. You've got Ashkenazi Jews. You have Orthodox Jews, so on and so forth. So out of this tribe comes many sub-tribes, and they don't agree with each other. So one of the biggest spokesmen at the moment at the America, as your viewers probably know, and as you probably know, is Max Blumenthal. Now, he's Jewish and is absolutely horrified about what's going on in Gaza. So what we need to do is get away from this silly business about anti-Semitic.
Yes.
Palestinians themselves are Semitic. They are
Yes.
Semitic. So
Exactly that.
that,
Exactly that. I want to take you back a little bit actually, because exactly that. I think I think the world has changed, like literally this weekend. It's insane what you're saying about how they came after you a few years ago when you were speaking out. The world appears to have suddenly woken up, and people are actually very openly saying Judaism is not Zionism. Do not conflate the two. In fact, actually doing that has been proven to be anti-Semitic in its own right. So let's go back, Goddard, because your understanding of history is finer than mine. And first of all, Professor David Miller in the UK, he proved that holding anti-Zionism views are worthy of respect in a democratic society. So we are allowed to criticize Zionism in the UK, even if, as you say, our media is captured, our bankers are captured, our government is captured, they're all captured, but things are changing. So take us back to who were the original Semites and why are they really more entitled to Israel/Palestine than the American and European settlers?
well, nobody is entitled to anything if you're going back for thousands and thousands of years. So let's take an example. If you go back and look at DNA, modern DNA techniques, you'll find that there is no serious claim to what is modern day Israel than anybody else. Which is why, of course, it's interesting, is it not, that DNA investigation is illegal in Israel, because it would disprove the whole invented game. So they've invented this ridiculous story that 5,000 years ago that they are entitled to be able to behave in the manner which they're behaving in Gaza. And it's expansionist, and the Zionists are very expansionist. So we can see from the size, from going from the idea of the Balfour Declaration, which was instigated by A.J. Balfour and, of course, Rothschild, one of the major bankers. And because if you read that declaration, which nobody seems to be bothered to do, including the students at Cambridge University who desecrated a statue there, if you actually read the declaration, it was very, very implicit and clear that it did not mean the displacement of anybody else who was living in that part of the world. It did not give them any form of priority. And if you look at the clips or what film clips there are in the 1920s and 1930s, you had Arabs, Islamist Arabs, Arab Jews, Palestinian Jews, and Palestinian Christians all getting on perfectly well together. And it was the same in Baghdad, incidentally. If you see the clips from the late 1950s, everybody getting on very well together, and Damascus. Now, these things are now stirred up. Nearly everything you track everything down, you track it down to the United States, the industrial military complex, and these very, very bad men who want permanent war. And it's permanent war. It doesn't matter whether it's Iraq, the Ukraine, Israel. So it goes on and so it goes on. These very bad people. And of course, at the root of this is money. And of course, you never quite know whether the tail is wagging the dog. It seems to me that the Americans will do whatever the Jewish lobby wants. And of course, you're dealing with a group of people internationally who control so much. So you're looking at the control of Hollywood, you're looking at the control of banking, you're looking at the control of politics. The entire United States Senate is owned by Friends of Israel. I mean, it's owned, and they pay. And they pay, and it's the same, of course, with our parliament. And at the end of the day, it's all about money. And money talks louder than anything else. And you make the observation about Rupert Lowe, I'm afraid I was a bit of a fan of up until about 2 weeks ago.
Right.
So he's like just like the bloody rest.
It really
And
is.
you can bet your bottom dollar it'll be money, because they're the ones that control the money. And this is the problem that you have. And they can buy influence. And if they own the banks, they own legacy media, and they own everything else, even though they are very few in number, they can control everything. And of course, if most people, unlike your subscribers who watch, who are very much more informed and more intelligent than most, as indeed I would suggest mine are on my channel, your average person who sits in his parlor watching BBC, Sky or Channel 4 only knows what he's told by people who are in the pay. Now,
Right.
what I think is interesting at the moment is that seems to me to be a bit of a change, because if you look now at the younger Jews in in America, for example, are beginning to come out against the barbarity of the IDF, who are very, very nasty people. They have. Why aren't we allowed to? Why isn't the why aren't we allowed to investigate the conditions in Israeli prisons where thousands of Palestinians are kept? They have a concentration camp. There's no point in calling it anything else. A concentration camp in Gaza. We're not allowed access. They've killed scores of journalists who've been trying to find out the truth in Gaza. They've even killed people trying to bring relief in food and medicine supplies. These people are very bad people. And so why, one asks himself, when if you look at the concept of Zionism, Zionism is God's chosen people, that they are chosen people. And that's what the Zionists believe. They actually believe in a master race. Where did we hear that before?
Right.
Why would Cameron and Boris Johnson claim to be Zionists?
Right.
Why would they do that? Do they not understand the concept of a master race? And that's what it's all about.
Oh, they understand perfectly. They understand perfectly. Let me show you this. Tell me your thoughts when you see this image. If you can see this on your screen, I think you can, can't you?
That is the expansion that we have seen in Israel of the Israel stuff from 1918. Now they dispute that because they would argue that some of that is desert in unworkable land, so on and so forth. So your Zionists tell you that that isn't actually the real case, although it's the case as far as borders are concerned. But that's like saying that a foreign power could take over Scotland because a lot of it's moorland and unfarmable, or parts of the north of England or parts of Wales. That doesn't follow. You can't make that argument just because it doesn't look particularly attractive like the Falklands was from a farming perspective or an agricultural perspective. So that is expansionism. And of course, if we look to the map, we see the same thing, the expansion of NATO, the expansion of American bases. 250 overseas American bases with hundreds of thousands of overseas personnel. If you want to find out why we are living in a society of permanent warfare all the time, you could trace it back to the United States, the neocons, the industrial complex, and people who want an eye to the main chance, like BlackRock. The new chancellor, for example, of Germany is ex-BlackRock. The previous prime minister of this country was ex-Goldman Sachs. You've got to understand, people have to understand who controls the levers of power. And criticism of Zionism or Israel is simply verboten. It's verboten. But I think people, including many, many Jews, I count one or two amongst my friends, are equally horrified by this behavior.
Yes, exactly, because we know that Zionism is not restricted to Jews. It's all over the world. I talked on Friday, I did an extensive piece about Zionism, and I've met Zionists from all over the world. We see them even here. So talk to me about what has been recently happening in terms of Iran. Could you foresee all of this taking place and the backing of the US and Israel taking these preemptive strikes when they were all supposed to be at the negotiating table? What were your thoughts about that?
Well, of course, Iran or Persia, call it whatever you like, has been exploited by the West for well over 100 years, and it's all about oil. And it was largely exploited, of course, by the British Empire, who wanted access to the oil and resources. And a lot of wars are often based on resources. And Iran has resources. And so what the United States, and before that the British Empire, they wanted to degrade the independence of Iran so that they could take the resources. It's exactly the same, of course, for Ukraine. It's resources. It's very rich in resources. And it's the same with the Russian Federation. You have to geld these companies so that people like BlackRock, Vanguard, and Bill Gates, and all the other riffraff of society can exploit it all. And so this is really what it's all about. Now, what is extraordinary, and I find extraordinary, because obviously, as you know, I'm a geomilitary analyst and RCDS trained in these matters. Iran. They were so patient. They had their embassies blown up. They had senior diplomats and generals murdered. And this went on. This has been going on for some years. Now, what the Israel want to do, they want to bring in the Americans to have a big war with Iran and crush Iran so they can expand even further and get the resources, because Israel does not have the resources that Iran has in the terms of oil and gas and so on and so forth. That's what they want. So it's about money and resources, as these things always are.
What about regime change? Is it also about regime change?
Totally. It's 100% about regime change. It's the same with the Ukraine, which they did by a coup. It's the same with the Russian Federation. You have to have a vassal state of the United States, and by de facto, if not de jure, the Israeli state, which is an expansionist state. Now, where they made the mistake, and I don't know how they made this, they seem to have totally misread the military ability of Iran. It's not the Iran of 40 years ago. They are very highly sophisticated. They have very sophisticated hypersonic weapons, and they've been very patient. And the strike, the strike they did, unwarned strike, and then again, when actually they were at the table, the peace table, they were negotiating peace, and then the Israelis struck again out of the blue. And of course, we know that President Trump was totally complicit in all this. So you can't trust the United States, you can't trust the Israelis, you can't trust the British government. Why are we interfering in the Ukraine and Israel from our base Akatiri in Cyprus? It's all going on from there. We're viewing all these things from Cyprus. We have people on the ground, so on and so forth. And of course, what's actually happened now is Iran has turned around and given the Israelis a bloody good hiding. And it's about bloody time they got a good hiding. Perhaps they'll start to behave themselves. Perhaps they'll start to work with international law, which Israel and the United States think they could simply abandon international law. I know it's not perfect. International law is not perfect, but it's a start, isn't it?
It has to be. We have to have some kind of framework that we have to. Otherwise, we're completely uncivilized. But what this has shown is, and going back to the money thing, and I just need to point out, of course, we have absolutely no proof whatsoever that Rupert Lowe has taken any financial incentives whatsoever. But we do know that a lot of the lobby is very much financial. We know that because what I covered on Friday, as one example, was how many Labour MPs, how many Conservative MPs have received money from Friends of Israel. We know that. And then Richard Tice, the so-called alternative party, also come out batting, although they haven't yet formed their own Friends of Israel for Reform. But we know it's all entirely captured. But the thing is, I actually see a breakthrough taking place here. I don't think I've ever seen a time, Godfrey, because one of the things that I said on Friday that I realized as I was talking was I myself, not in Gaza, not in Palestine, but we've had Israel all day, every day for much of my life. Their issues have become my issues, and I'm sick of that. And I really feel that we're starting to, it's almost like people are waking up to such an extent and saying, this is not our issue. This is not our problem. We've been infiltrated. And I think that in itself is a cause for celebration. Or do you think I'm being too optimistic?
No, I think you're right. It's a very slow beginning and it's very hesitant beginning. But I think it's going to come. My hunch, and it's only a hunch, is that it will come from younger Jews in the West, which is where most of them are. America, they went to America, they spread and they work in all over the world, but particularly America, which is where the power bases are. I think that's now becoming when you have young Jewish actors and actresses coming out and saying, this is disgraceful, I don't want to be a part of it, not in my name, if you will. I think that could be a groundswell of opinion, and people might then, politicians, be a little bit more. It's very intimidating, if you criticize Israel, if you're elected politician, that you've lost legacy media immediately. And I don't think this has anything to do with Rupert Lowe's money. He's a rich man in his own right.
Yes.
But he did say last week, and I criticized him on X for it, he said, I'm more interested in my constituency than Gaza. Now, how an intelligent, well-educated man can say, I'm ignoring genocide in Gaza because I'm worried about the new pier they're going to build in Yarmouth. I'm worried about the new car parks in Gaza. What kind of stupid statement is that from a man who we know is intelligent? So what's going on behind the scenes? What did the leadership of Reform say the other day? Say they're in favor of regime change in Iran. Nigel Farage. What does he know about it?
Right.
What does he know about it?
Right.
Not at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, this is why I was so happy. I think the timing of you coming on today could not be more than perfect, because you are literally an example of a former member of parliament who has always stood to be counted. I wonder if I can bring in this image. I just clipped a quick image of you this morning. I wonder if I could just bring it in when you were in parliament, because the thing is, you have always stood up to be counted. And I think we see so little of it. We've all lost faith in politicians. I said to you the last time, this is where you're giving them some bollocking or another, godders, about their nonsense, right? And you never shied away from that. So did it never concern you as a politician that you would lose favor by speaking out the way you did against Israel and against Zionism?
Well, not really. First of all, you can't buy me, and that's not because I'm a saint, as my
I
wife would
got
tell you.
you.
It's we have a small holding in Yorkshire, and frankly, I don't give a shit. I've got enough money, not plenty, but I've got enough money of my own. I don't need to kowtow to anybody else, and I'm not suggesting there aren't Islamic states with serious problems as well.
Right.
But I cannot stand by. I cannot stand by and see the mass murder of women and children in Gaza and not raise an objection. It's more than I could possibly do, in any more than I was on a train, old man as I am, just last year, and a woman's being intimidated by a nasty semi-drunken bloke, and I had to give him a wee slap. I couldn't sit by and watch that happen because I couldn't live with myself.
Right.
We've all got to stand up, and I wish to God we had a free press. And I've said this on your channel before. We have no free press, so we can't wait for the BBC to do anything, or Sky, or Channel 4, because they all piss in the same pot.
They do. They do. But I actually think things are changing. So what do you think is the situation where we're at now? Because last week everybody was like, we're on a knife edge. It's World War III anytime now. We just, we all seem to be waiting for Donald Trump to say the next thing. And he says mad stuff all the time. So where are we, do you think, about in terms of like another world war? Is that likely?
Well, I don't think so. I'll tell you why. We have virtually no army to speak of. We have a totally out of date Air Force. We see that the United States, with all their trillions of dollars they pump into it, their kit doesn't work. They have a decadent, tired society, so they can't conscript. We hear about conscription in Germany, conscription in this country. And the kids today, they don't want to go, and they haven't got the wherewithal to do it. We don't live in a disciplined society, so you can't make soldiers out of these people. Plus the fact, of course, that we know that the Russian Federation have these Oreshnik missiles, which travel at 12,000 miles an hour, to which you cannot defend yourself. You cannot defend yourself. So it's a no-win game. So even the morons that run our country and run America cannot start a world war because we have no defense. And of course, the first side of that was Israel with their Iron Dome, which has been completely obliterated. You can't defend against this stuff. So a world war is so crazy by anybody's standards. I think it will have to be avoided. But then when sometimes you listen to Trump and the Chancellor of Germany and that idiot we've got in number 10 Downing Street, they're capable of doing anything because they're so stupid.
They're so weak. I got to read you Ray J's comment. It completely supports this. Says that's why our politicians are the weakest in our history. I don't know whether that's true or not, but they are weak. And he says integrity doesn't exist with them anymore. I mean, you again have a better overview and understanding of political history than I do. Are we actually dealing with a particularly weak kind of input of politicians these days, or has it always been ever thus?
I would suggest that it's been my own theory on this is that our politicians have been weak and hopeless and corrupt since the days of Lord Salisbury. I think he was the last old-fashioned conservative who actually stood foursquare for something, whether you agreed with it or not. He was a proper chap. Lord Palmerston had a very moral dimension, even within his gunboat diplomacy, so on and so forth. The people that we have today they're cut from a different cloth.
They're careerists.
Yeah, they're career politicians, of course, which is something that we've always had to an extent, but never to the extent that we have now. These are just shallow and bad people. I mean, you could do no worse than flick up pictures of Cameron, Theresa May, and Boris Johnson. Just show pictures of them. You can just look at their faces and see how bad and weak and awful these people are.
Yes, exactly. DJ Markson says, God is dropping the truth bombs always, which is what we love. Absolutely. God, yes, lenticular cloud, he is principled, and it's important to be principled because we're seeing how people are just exchanging their principles for easy cash and influence, and it's repugnant. And Steve Miller says he's great, we need more straight talkers. We do. And you really should be absolutely on Good Morning Britain and all over legacy media, but you are too much of a threat to the existing order. So in its own right, Godders, it is a compliment because they can't handle you. They can't handle the truth. And you are not only principled, but you're one of those people. I find you to be fairly fearless, actually. Do you feel fear at all?
Uh, the only fear I've ever felt in my life is the sight of Mrs. Bloom with a rolling pin in her hand when I have transgressed.
They've infiltrated everything, says the Blue Nomad. Goddess, just, before you leave us today, I would love you to give us just some sort of overview of what you think that perhaps we can expect next on the world stage regarding this, because clearly the whole Zionist structure has been challenged like never before. It's all out in the open now. It's transparent. These people are exposed. Where could we go next in order to start rebuilding our world? We need to heal.
I would say, although I didn't agree with them at the time, our young people in our universities, they need to come out with some morals and some ethics like they did in the 60s and take an interest.
Right.
And I think that could be coming. And I think that's beginning to start now just a little bit in the American universities. And quite some big cheers when I see at Oxford, and I've spoken at the Oxford Union, Cambridge Union, I'm seeing to see some big cheers come from people there. Funnily enough, some Israelis themselves, with a theme of "not in my name," getting big cheers now. It's not for old geezers like me at 75. It's for the youngsters. It's for the next generation, the 21, 22-year-olds, to take to the streets and start saying "not in my name."
And they are, and like in America, they're getting deported for doing that. They are like being, kidnapped from campus for daring to speak out against the regime. And so, as you've already said, absolutely captured. The whole thing is, and I do worry what they're going to do next in the UK. But can I just say, oh, Giza, no, you are absolutely essential to this, because we need people with your understanding, the richness of your knowledge that you bring to the table. So youth is all great, and we love that. We love that energy, but we do need your knowledge, Godders. Do not underestimate your role in this. And it's almost like your time has come, mate. Your time has come. It's like what you said was outsider stuff back then, but now people are able to see that you are ahead of the curve. That's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I want to thank you for that, for being so brave and being prepared to put your head above the parapet. Everybody, this is the remarkable Godfrey Bloom, and that's why I bring him back, because I love him. I love him, love him. Take good care of yourself. Have a good week, Godders.
Thank you so much.
Lovely to see you. Take care. Wonderful, wonderful man. And he's bold. He's bold. And the thing is, even people who are well heeled and have money still won't speak out. And I just love the fact that he will. Yes, I do. And how are your comments? Remarkable. Yes, thank you. Thank you. You're always welcome here, Godfrey, says Merv. Absolutely is. Thank you, Godfrey, says Randy. Good man, Godders, says Sentanti. Thank you so much, Godders, says Jackie.
It's time to wake up with Sonia Poulton.
As most of you know, my work is very heavily independently research based, and I get my information from all over the world. It would help if you press the subscribe button and the little bell next to it, because the more subscribers I have, the more likely it is that international independent research institutes will share their material with me. It's most helpful, and then of course I automatically share it with you. So, surprise, won't cost you anything. Thank you very much.